Hi everyone, I'm the Book Guy, and welcome to our new monthly theme of Indie November, where I'm going to introduce to you a few self-published authors who deserve a little bit more recognition. I'm also going to reintroduce my cat, who just wanted to be involved, didn't you, darling? You're the most beautiful cat, and I love you. Okay, get out of here. Today's feature is The Dragon's Blade Trilogy by indie author Michael R. Miller. You might have heard of this guy. He's done 2 series so far. That's The Dragon's Blade Trilogy and The Songs of Chaos. Both of them have done pretty well as audiobooks, and they have these gorgeous covers on them as well. Now, before I even start, I have to address the elephant in the room. So Michael Miller approached me back in July of this year and offered me some free copies of his books. I did a post on my YouTube wall about it, and if you didn't know, this is pretty common. So if you get traditionally published as a writer, you'll have a publicist who sends free copies of your book to other authors, book reviewers, YouTubers, in fact, etc. And that's how you get those little recommendations on the front of a book. Or you get those reviews on Goodreads. It's all obligation-free in the hopes that they'll give you a good review. Although if you're an indie author, you got to do all that publicist work yourself.
Sounds exhausting.
So yes, these are free copies, but this is not a sponsored video in any way. In fact, when I was reading the work, I immediately thought, I gotta make videos about this. In fact, I'm doing 2 videos. So today's video is on The Dragon's Blade, his first trilogy, and then next week or whenever will be the Songs of Chaos trilogy, which I've got up there. Because these self-published books are easily just as good as any high fantasy series I've read recently. My goal here is to help you find a good book to read. Well, I found them. The world is in peril. Dark forces have summoned an army of demons that are ravaging the land. The humans with their mighty war machines are failing. The fairies with all of their magic cannot stop the demons. Even the physical might of the dragons is overwhelmed by the sheer number of invaders. All looks doomed. So Darnuir is the Prince of Dragons, an arrogant, reckless, and drunk on his own power Prince of Dragons. Darnuir begs his father, the King of Dragons, to use the Dragon's Blade, the most powerful magical artifact they possess. It's so powerful, it's bonded to the royal family so only they can use it. It's the magical equivalent of going nuclear. His father refuses. He believes greater power is not the answer. What we actually need are the 3 races of humans, fairies, and dragons to work together and unite. Only together can they defeat a mighty enemy. Yet Darnuir thinks he knows better. He steals the Dragon's Blade and rushes straight into the conflict filled with magical power. Instead, he causes an enormous catastrophe. Both himself and his father, who's trying to rescue him, are struck dead by the demon horde.
Ooh, that's bad.
Also, this is all in like chapter 1, okay, so it's not like spoilers or anything. The remaining rulers are desperate at this stage. With the royal family slain, there's no one left who can wield the Dragon's Blade, their final hope of survival. So one wizard has one last trick up his sleeve. He can revert time and return Prince Darnuir to the time when he was an infant. They give the baby dragon prince to a family of humans to raise. Maybe if humans raise him, he won't be so prideful and sure of dragon superiority. He will grow up to become the chosen one, fated to claim his birthright and wield the Dragon's Blade once more. But will he end up just as reckless as he was in his past life? Will he be able to rise past his old self and become the hero the world needs him to be?
That's good.
There's a second elephant in this room. Haven't done this for a while. So, I have a confession. When I first started reading this book, I realized it was a demon invasion story. And I immediately went, oh no! Demon invasions suck! This is going to be a terrible book.
I've made a huge mistake.
Demon armies have been done so many times in fantasy, like the Shannara series, Throne of Glass series, etc. Here's the problem. Demons are a boring enemy. Demons are like zombies or a natural disaster like a hurricane. They're not villains, they're more like a force of nature. So they have no character, no motivation, nothing other than that desire to destroy everything. It sounds scary in concept, but it's so morally simple it becomes predictable. However, the Dragon's Blade shows us very quickly that while the demons may be the main threat, the story is about the other races. The humans, the fairies, and the dragons. The story is about the fear, prejudice, and suspicion that keeps these guys from working together. That is the real threat.
It was inside us all along.
Brilliant, Jake.
No, Charles, not everything was inside of us all along.
In that sense, Dragon's Blade is a lot more like The Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett, and I'm sad I haven't had the chance to talk about this amazing series yet, but a short pitch is that in this world, demons come out at night to eat people and their faces. Yet the story is not about the demons, it's about the humans. That's why there's even a book called The Daylight War. Hey, if demons only come out at night, who's fighting in the Daylight War? People. Because it's a story about people. In the same way, The Dragon's Blade is a story about people, and ultimately about human nature. It was, in fact, at this moment that I started to love The Dragon's Blade, because it took a classic high fantasy trope of the demon invasion and modernized it. This is something that I have found to be a common theme in all of Michael R. Miller's works, is that he modernizes high fantasy. So forgive me, I'm going to talk a little bit more academically today about this concept before I get into important things like plot and character. So on my channel, we just did Old School October, a monthly theme of looking at classic fantasy. And we found that one of the big problems old fantasy has is that it's too morally simple. It's so purely good versus evil that it can be almost childish. However, the industry kind of went to the other extreme, as if trying too hard to prove that it was all grown up now. By the 2000s, high fantasy had a lot more edge and grimdark, like Game of Thrones. Fantasy books nowadays have a much more mature rating. Nowadays, all of the fantasy TV shows have an adult rating. Then we have authors like Brandon Sanderson and Michael R. Miller, who write high fantasy that has grown up, but has not gone too dark. This is what you might call the Goldilocks of morality. Not too morally simple where it feels childish, and not so morally complicated that it feels hopeless. It's just right. So this is a morally complicated world that is still filled with hope and optimism, even if you have to fight for that. And for that, I think it is a beautiful modern take on high fantasy. You see, I, like many of you, grew up reading high fantasy. But when I got older, I realized high fantasy had not grown up the same way I had. High fantasy like Raymond Feist was kinda too childish for me as an adult. That's why Brandon Sanderson is probably my personal favorite author, because he writes modern fantasy that has grown up, but kept the beauty and the fun. But back to Dragon's Blade. Another modernizing aspect of the story is the fantasy races. So the Tolkien races are the men, elves, and dwarves, and then there are the evil races like the orcs and the rags. In Dragon's Blade, we have fairies, or the fae, creatures of magic. We do have humans who are much more focused on war machines and ingenuity and technology. And the dragons, well, they're a very fascinating take. So the dragons of this world are not bestial dragons. They actually look like humans. It's implied at the start that they've sort of lost their ability to shapeshift at some point and they're stuck in human form. In their current state, they're super strong and have heightened animal-like senses. So think Captain America crossed with Beast. Another modern take is the conflict. So classic high fantasy has the Lord of the Rings styled conflict, you know, Sauron and Saruman versus everyone, bad guys versus good guys. That is very much a retelling of the World War II conflict, which is probably the most black and white conflict the world has ever seen. Yet the Dragon's Blade has conflict that reflects a much more modern state of warfare, where you might have two groups who fight for their own very compelling reasons, and everyone else just sort of stands to the side and is more interested in looking out for their own and trying to make sure they don't get too involved. So half the battle for the side of good is just trying to get all the spectators off their butts and to start helping. There are groups of humans who think all magical creatures are evil and will just open fire on anyone who comes near their borders. There are dragons who think, hey, if those humans are working with the demons, then all humans are working with the demons. Hashtag not all humans. The characters in this story spend a lot of time fighting each other. So you probably get the idea. This is high fantasy that will make you feel like a kid again, but will still appeal to the adult in you. Okay, this was my favorite part of the Dragon's Blade trilogy, Darnuir's temptation with the dark side. It was a true masterstroke of writing. So I'm going to talk about this straight away. Sorry, this video has a really unusual structure. Also, heads up, you may consider this very light spoilers, but I will still be careful of that. So the main character in the series is Darnuir. That's him on the front cover there. So he's a fascinating kind of chosen one. He was predestined from birth to rule and to save the world, but only because he screwed screwed it up so badly last time. Darnuir is raised by humans, so he has a much more humble upbringing this time. He starts learning things like kindness, patience, humility, etc. Later, when he learns of his true origin, he starts remembering his past life. Now, his memories and his past life is his first temptation. You see, all of his memories show him full of rage and impatience. He remembers bloodlust of leaping into battle. He remembers the horrors of dying. So all of his memories include darkness and pain. So you get the sense that his own mind is trying to pull him down. His second temptation is his draconic nature. So dragons are part beast. They have animal instincts. They can literally smell fear, and it has a sweet, almost narcotic scent to them. They have overpowering bloodlust and a thrill for battle. During a fight, dragons will frequently have moments of frenzy and bloodlust where they lose all control. So as Darnuir realizes for the first time that he's not human, he's a dragon, he starts getting in touch with his true strength, and in doing so comes an onslaught of savagery that he is not equipped to handle. The third temptation of Darnuir is magic, and I love the magic system in this story. So it is a very soft magic system, but it has a killer of a restriction. Magic is a narcotic. It will literally get you high. This means that magic wielders can very easily become like junkies. They are desperate to get back into battle so they can experience another hit. So Darnuir finds himself wanting to order armies into battle instead of negotiating, because he just wants more of that magic. He's so desperate to satisfy the craving, he can't trust himself to be objective and make important decisions when his body is aching for that fix. All of these things make Darnuir one of the most compelling lead characters I've read recently. He reminds me a lot of Luke Skywalker, in that he struggles with the temptation with the dark side. And people often forget this because, the original trilogy is 40 years old. But there was a huge risk of Luke going to the dark side. In fact, he comes very close. Darnuir is similar in that sense. He has conflict coming from multiple sources. There are compelling reasons for him to go bad. You might even argue that it is in his nature. It's who he truly is. So his true struggle in the story is not against demonic armies or the rulers of other races. It's against himself. And that is the best kind of character arc. As the third elephant in this room, and then, yes, we'll actually talk about plot and characters. So Michael Miller and I have emailed a couple of times, and I won't share those emails that were sent in confidence, but there was one funny exchange early on. He was like, hey, do you want to read Songs of Chaos? And I go, oh yeah, and Dragon's Blade. And he goes, I am exaggerating, of course, but the thing is, Book 1, The Reborn King, was written when Michael was just 22, and the whole trilogy was published by the time he was 25. So he was very young while writing this one. I am so glad no one can see the stuff I was writing when I was 22, because it was bad. And I want to talk about this, because I think young authors get a bit of a bad reputation, unfairly. So I think of Christopher Paolini, who did Aragon, and Rebecca Kuang, who wrote The Poppy War. Oh, and Sarah J. Maas, who did Throne of Glass. Some people say that young authors are bad authors. I don't think it's that simple. Young authors often have natural, strong talent in one area and have underdeveloped talent in other areas. They have an incomplete skill set. So some people think to be a writer, all you need is a really good idea. In reality, you need multiple skills that all work in conjunction with each other smoothly. Let's look at this rough list here that is by no means conclusive. You need multiple skills like character, plot, and world building, but under them you will have character introductions, character arcs, character dialogue, and then prose and language, plot introduction, plot progression, plot conclusion, etc. So there are lots of skills that make up the one skill set that is writing. Now, young authors will usually have natural gifts in one area, and that's what draws them into writing to begin with. But there are always other areas they need to practice. Books by young authors aren't bad, they are just inconsistent in the quality. I believe that the sign of a good author is not whether they are naturally gifted at everything, but whether they have worked on their weaknesses. So when I picked up Dragon's Blade, I knew going in that the author was 22. But I also noticed straight away his character writing was strong, almost unbelievably good. And his writing prose avoided a lot of the melodrama that young authors sometimes fall into. I did also notice that his plot structure was a bit flimsy and struggled to flow from Act 1 to Act 3, and the juggling of multiple plot lines was a bit imbalanced. Like I said, not good or bad, just inconsistent. Many of the weaknesses in Book 1 were already improving by Book 2. You can look at it on Goodreads. So Book 1 has a rating of 3.8, Books 2 and 3 are both 4.10, so you can see the improvement already. And you should also note that on Goodreads, the next series, Songs of Chaos, skyrockets up to 4.5 and 4.6. That's because by the time of the second series, Songs of Chaos, Michael Miller has become a much more well-rounded writer, because that's a sign of a good author. They keep working on their weaknesses and keep improving. Okay, let's actually talk about the plot for this one. I'm sorry about today's weird structure. I'm doing NaNoWriMo, so my thoughts are all over the place. So the main plot of Dragon's Blade is very military. I love military high fantasy. It's very much like the Wheel of Time from Book 4 onwards. There's tons of strategy, military campaigns, battle planning, and long action scenes in every book. In fact, I would say that the biggest difference between the Dragon's Blade and Songs of Chaos, his second series, is the military aspect. Because Songs of Chaos is all about dragon riders, so I think it's less military and more like a superhero story in that sense. There's a ton of politicking. Darnuir, Prince of Dragons, tries to form alliances with other dragons, multiple human countries, and the fairies. The human king, Arcus in particular, is a very cunning warrior on the political battlefield. There are islanders off the main coast who speak with very authentic Scottish accents, and there are trolls in the icy north.
Who's as sensitive and sweet?
Not those trolls. These trolls. All of them need to join the alliance if they're going to have a hope of defeating the demons, and Darnuir has to convince them all in their own way. Another big plot is magic mystery. I love the big magic mystery plotline. It's fantastic. So things like, what happened to the dragons to lock them in their human form? Where did the dragon's blade come from? And are there perhaps other blades of a similar caliber? Who is the shadowed master behind all of the demon hordes? Are the gods themselves involved in this war? And the final big plotline is the character arcs, although that should really go in our next segment. So as I said before, Michael R. Miller's natural strength as an author is in his character work. It's damn good. And it's a major feature of this series, the nuanced character arcs. So now I've talked at length about Darnuir already, so let's look at some of the other characters who go on their own journeys. So Cassandra, she is more or less a prisoner of an evil wizard at the start of the book. This evil wizard fights alongside the demons. When she learns that the wizard has a new evil plan, she is determined to finally escape him and go and tell the forces of light about this guy's plan. Cassandra starts as the most timid, beaten down girl. She is a slave and a prisoner and has that mentality. She doesn't have magic or powers or authority, but she wants to fight back. Cassandra is like the Hobbit of this series. She is the smallest person capable of bringing the greatest change. Arcus is the king of the humans, or most of them. He's probably the most powerful of the human leaders, so he gets called king of the humans a lot. Arcus has lost so much in his life, yet he still tries to do the right thing. He tries to trust and tries to fight for justice, but after years of war, his soul is weary. He would do just about anything to save his family and bring peace once more, but how far will he go? Can he remain a good man? And Dakuna. This guy is the leader of the Spectres. So the Spectres have joined with the demons in this war. So Dakuna is essentially the second in command of the demon army, under the mysterious Dark Lord. So Dakuna wants revenge on all the other races for how they've treated Spectres all his life. Yet he's not so sure if the Dark Lord is going to be any better. As much as Dakuna serves the side of evil, his true intentions is the salvation of his people. Dakuna creates this beautiful tension in the enemy camp. His arc also mirrors Darnuir and Arcus, and they all struggle with inner darkness and the desire to save their people. This harkens back to what I said earlier about the moral complexity of the story. Even in a world of demon hordes, there is no black and white morality. In fact, morality is a lot more yin-yang. A little bit of darkness in every light, a little bit of light in every darkness. Forgiveness plays such a big role in this story that it deserves its own segment. So much of the story is about conflict and prejudice between races. People make mistakes all the time, there are a lot of past hurts and new hurts emerging. This is where some characters try to practice forgiveness, coming together and overlooking wrongs in the past to forge a new future. This becomes the real heart of the story. Like, yes, it's a story about war, but ultimately the only way to de-escalate a conflict is to forgive. Fighting fire with fire only makes things worse. The endless cycle of punishing others for past crimes only ends when we start to work together. But the story is not naive about this either. Sometimes one character extends a hand of friendship and forgiveness and someone else slaps it away. It's a tricky situation and there isn't an easy solution. But I'd like to see forgiveness more often considered as an option, as an alternative to violence. This series has so much to say about war and peace, and ultimately human nature. I can't talk about The Dragon's Blade without sharing this fun update. So a new novella has just come out literally 2 days ago at the time of recording, and it's free. So Michael R. Miller wrote The Huntress a few years ago for a short story anthology called Lost Lore. The assignment for this anthology was to write a tale set in your world that had been forgotten. So originally he wrote The Huntress as a short story for the anthology, but just this year he revisited the story and expanded it to a full 100-page novella. It's about Elsie, a very minor character in The Dragon's Blade. She's a simple huntress who keeps wild beasts away from the town. But when the army starts to run out of soldiers, she is recruited reluctantly into a war she is not prepared for. Yet, she has an infant son who she would do anything to protect. This story is about the beauty and tragedy of individuals who often get overlooked in the midst of the great magical deeds of the mighty. This is about the forgotten heroes. So The Huntress is available now if you subscribe to Michael R. Miller's emailing list. It's a great way to sample his work for free to see if you like it. Not to mention, Michael R. Miller has actually confirmed that they are producing an audio version of the novella, and that too will be free in time to email subscribers. One little warning though, technically the novella should be read after the Dragon's Blade trilogy, but the spoilers are very light. It's not really connected to the main plot, it is about a side character and their forgotten tale, so it doesn't overlap too much. If you're happy with that, you can try that story today. I'll put the links in the descriptions below. This series has a huge amount of representation for race. You might say that it's a story about race. So it's not Earth's races represented, but it is earthly racial themes represented. Except maybe the Scottish. Also, the Scots are definitely being invaded by the English again. It's not even subtle. But for the most part, this story is about fantasy races that talk about prejudice and the difficulties in achieving unity. And it's not just brooding either. So some writers try to talk about mature themes like this and just sort of wallow around miserably without saying anything of substance. There is depth and wisdom in this series that frankly the United Nations could stand to hear. Michael R. Miller for Ambassador. There is plenty of women in the series as well. There are a lot of female soldiers or warriors and a blurring of traditional gender roles, which I'm always like to see. The leading woman, Cassandra, is a fantastic protagonist. That said, she's also the only female protagonist. There is a Queen of Fairies, though she isn't really protagonist per se. So it's not 50-50 male-female cast. It is still good representation, there's just not a lot of that. I will say I honestly don't remember any sort of LGBT or disability or other minority represented here as well. Though I am inclined to be forgiving because, that's on theme, but because the series focuses so hard on racial themes. It's clearly drawing attention to these important issues, and that's the battlefield it's taking a stance on. That said, LGBT and disability rep sees way more inclusion in the next series, Songs of Chaos. Well, I have good news. There is literally no content warning for this series. Almost zero violence, despite it being a series about war, zero sex or swearing or mature themes or dark content. I know that's important to some of you. Seriously, I'd say that these books are actually great for kids. They discuss some very important questions without being heavy-handed, and the adults will appreciate the depth of themes without having hyperviolence shoved in your face. In a word, yes. This is a trilogy where it is definitely worth reading every book. I found the ending to be extremely satisfying. However, no spoilers here, of course, but remember how I said that Michael R. Miller has that gift for modernizing high fantasy? Well, the ending in particular is a great example of that. It's not a cheesy ending, it's a mature ending. That's all I'm going to say about it, but I hope that entices you to give it a go. So, if you do decide to read this series, I do have to recommend try to read up to Book 2. Book 1 is fine, but it is not the best reflection of the writer that Michael R. Miller became after a bit more practice. Put it this way, I was reading Book 2, and I read one thing that impressed me so much I had to stop and immediately email Michael Miller to tell him how great it was. One last thing, I am selling this series to you a little bit more than normal because it's indie authors and they need that sort of verbal confirmation. But this trilogy is available in audio form as a bundle, so it's literally buy all 3 for the price of 1 on Audible. It's the same for the ebook version as well. And this is another indie publishing strategy to make your first book or 2 super cheap to entice in new readers. I will say one thing about the audiobook. The narrator was good, but didn't use a lot of variation in their voices. So many of the characters had voices that sounded the same, and I did find it a bit hard to tell characters apart through the series. Otherwise, the audiobook version is good. That said, if you do prefer paperback versions, they do come separately, but you can buy a bundle in this massive new hardcover omnibus edition that only just came out this month. It is a gorgeous collector's item. It's a bit more pricey than paperback, but it definitely looks great on the shelf, and it's still suitable for reading in that format. Well, I hope that gives you all the information you need to decide if this series is right for you, so good luck and happy reading. Okay, so that was my introduction to the Dragon's Blade trilogy. 2 quick announcements. So I am, yes, doing a video on Songs of Chaos next week, immediately after this one, won't be too long. Secondly, I'm very excited to announce that I'm doing my very first author's interview. So, on Sunday, 19th of November, I'll be chatting with Michael R. Miller live on YouTube about both of his series, about being an indie author and a whole bunch of other nerdy topics. This interview is going to be live. My brilliant wife, Kit, is actually going to be helping. She'll be sitting there reading out questions in the chat, so it'll be a great opportunity for you to engage with authors and myself if you want, and ask questions that you are curious about. I hope you'll join me for that. So again, that was Sunday, the 19th of November. The times will be 7 a.m. New York time, 12 o'clock noon on London time, and 10 p.m. Brisbane time for me. Sorry, West Coast of America, we try to please everyone. The world is big, so I hope you'll join me for that. Meanwhile, you can support my work by liking, commenting, interacting with the video in some way, and subscribing, of course. You can also check out our shop, Rainbow Space Unicorn. If you haven't checked that out, you definitely should click on that link and have a look. There are lots of cute goodies there. Otherwise, I'm the Book Guy, and thank you for watching my video today. Bye!